Okay, what's the
This
agenda?
is all, just so everybody knows. This is all
Already.
We'll behave ourselves.
just now.
Ready to begin? Okay, on this first day of November 2020, the Croydon Planning Board calls to order a public hearing act upon 4 warrant items to be voted upon by the citizens of the town at their annual meeting in March of 2024. Let the record show that the following members of the planning board and their invited guests are in attendance. We have Bruce Jasper, we have Jim Morgan, we have Chris Prost, I'm Larry Rawls, Melissa Prunier, our administrative assistant, and we have Kim Berkhammer, who is the ex officio member representing the select board. Pursuant to revised statute annotated or RSA 91A, section 2, let the record show we have a quorum of the planning board in attendance. We have the jurisdiction to act upon these matters. Our meeting is open to the public. The meeting has been properly warned. Minutes of this meeting will be available in 5 days, and the minutes will record the names of members who made and seconded any motion. Okay, first we will present the specifics of these various matters we're going to be talking about, after which the board will vote as to whether to accept or reject these proposals and then send them on to the select board for their consideration and then inclusion in the warrant items that will be presented at next year's town meeting. If anybody has any questions as we go along, just raise your hand. I'd be glad to answer. So without further ado, we will start with Bruce, and he will explain to us the changes that are going to happen to Article 9 of the board.
From a procedural standpoint, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Oh, we have to, okay.
I will
Second,
second the motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
There we go.
So the public can speak to each of the
Yeah.
warrants.
Reasonable, correct? Okay, Bruce, if you would present your changes, please.
Sure. So this is the zoning ordinance for the town of Croydon was adopted in August of 1989. As far as I can tell, it's never been amended. There are a number of changes that need to be made. The first one that I had presented to the planning board, for those of you who have the Article 9, is that RSA Chapter 31 needs to be amended to Chapter 676:1. Chapter 31 has been repealed, so it's not in existence anymore. The number A1, the proposed change is really in how the zoning board members are appointed. Right now, there are 5 members. The select board and the planning board present at least 2 persons to the moderator. And the moderator from that list selects a person to sit on the zoning board. Obviously, the problem has been the number of people that are available or willing to serve has been kind of low. So I'm not sure the last time that 2 people were ever presented to the moderator for appointment to the zoning board. My suggestion was to change that to just the select board has to come up with 2 members. Just have the select board make the nomination of, to the zoning board. The other thing that's in that paragraph is that the term is 5 years. It's never been 5 years as far as I can tell. The statute is 3 years. So amend 5 years to 3 years. And the same with the vacancy occurs. The same process was used. The moderator had to get nominations from the planning board and the select board, and then appoint somebody to the zoning board. Again, I thought it was just make it easy and just let the select board make the nomination of the person to the zoning board. The next one has to do with alternate members. Again, we're talking about five alternate members. Right now, the zoning board has one alternate member, and for a long time hasn't had any alternate members. Again, just the problem is people not being willing, I think, to serve on the zoning board. So the suggestion was that the select board shall appoint up to 5 alternate members. And again, in that paragraph 2, changing RSA 3167A to the updated version of RSA 673:6. That the last part of that section is that the alternate members serve for 3 years, again, not 5 years. And the vacancies for an alternate, the appointment of those, filling those vacancies would be the same as the filling the membership of the zoning board by the selectmen. I think it's just a streamlined process. If somebody is willing to serve, I think the last time we went through this process, I, as the moderator, had to wait for the selectmen to come up with somebody who then presented it to the planning board. The planning board then got it to me, and we were talking about between their meetings to try to get somebody appointed to the zoning. Yeah, John was the guy that had to wait out in the outskirts while we were trying to get those nominations from the planning board and the select board. And again, we were supposed to have 2. I think Mickey Mouse was the other person that was, to make up that 2. That's all I have.
Okay, anybody have any questions as to what we're doing? And also for your information, we'll be doing something similar for the planning board because nothing has been done there since 1989. So it's time to upgrade that also. And that'll come up next spring. So now what we'll do is we'll move on to the specific.
Any questions?
Is there a question?
Okay.
Okay. What I'm going to be talking about next are additional housing units, additional dwelling units. And I'm sure all of you, can you hear me up here? I'm sure everyone is aware of the fact that there's been a lot of news about affordability of housing in America, in New Hampshire. And the state a number of years ago passed an RSA 674, section 59, which says that, among other things, that all municipalities in the state shall provide reasonable and realistic opportunities for the development of affordable or workplace housing, and no specific per se. It's not realistic for Croydon to consider building a large multi-family unit such as the one going up across the way from the Shaw's parking lot. And the reason, of course, is infrastructure. We have no wastewater treatment facility, and the master plan has wording in it that says that we have no intention of building one, but it's just not economically feasible. So in that respect, that's not something we have to particularly worry about. However, keeping with the spirit of accommodating affordable housing, the planning board proposes that we initiate a zoning ordinance that codifies the building of what will be called additional dwelling units, or ADUs. And ADUs will be defined as secondary dwelling units having the facilities for independent living to include cooking, sleeping, sanitation, an in-law apartment, if you will, is the basic concept. The purpose of these regulations that are to minimize safety hazards, health and welfare, prevent land and water pollution, and preserve the rural residential character of the town, if we may. It's hoped regulations will allow for more flexibility in household living arrangements and the opportunity for rental units to provide affordable housing. The specifics of it will be that Article 4:A, definitions of the Croydon zoning ordinance, will be amended to read the following. Put my glasses on. Okay.
Sorry, Mr.
A
Chairman.
secondary dwelling unit that is either attached or detached from a one-family dwelling. Said ADU shall comply with the safety regulations for construction, including the use of smoke alarms and carbon dioxide detectors. A building permit will be required. An ADU is not permitted on a lot with an existing ADU, two-family or multi-family dwelling. An ADU may be no larger than 750 square feet, nor can it have more than 2 bedrooms. The principal one-family dwelling or the ADU shall be owner occupied. The owner, when applying for a building permit, shall record an acknowledgement of owner occupancy. In accordance with RSA 485-A:38 as amended, the property owner must demonstrate the adequacy of the water supply and sewage disposal systems at the time of their application for building. Manufactured homes, as defined in RSA 485-A:31 as amended, may not serve as ADUs. And what they're talking about there are trailers with wheels or tiny houses. Anything you can pick up and move. It's got to have a foundation of some sort. The primary dwelling in an ADU must share a common driveway and have adequate off-street parking for at least 5 vehicles. You know, it's a way to, I guess, help out with the odd apartment here and there, but hopefully not disrupt any of the rural residential character of the town, I guess. Yeah, Chris Dunn?
750 feet.
I'm sorry.
750
Don, can you come up to the mic?
Oh,
750 feet, I don't know who came up with that, that's a pretty strong.
Name and address for the record.
Was that,
Name and address for the record.
oh,
I mean, I can see that if you like in town, we have small.
no, your name and address for the record.
So we know, we can put your name in the minutes.
Dominic Devine.
Thank you, Don. I know.
And not the ball player, okay.
I know, right?
I wouldn't be seeing it.
You'd be 123, right?
750 feet.
It's in the state, the RSA.
It's in the RSA. Because the intention of an ADU is really for having non-children contained there. It's usually an in-law apartment. It's usually a child who's moved home from college or something like that. And what's really important to protect our tax rate is that we make sure that we don't have people building multiple ADUs on their property and renting them out. Because 10 children adds $1.87 to the tax rate. So it's to be sensitive of fragility of the tax rate to try to protect Croydon from having somebody who has, you know, multiple acreage and decides that they're going to put in 7 ADUs and house not their family, but house actually, you know, renters. And that becomes a problematic issue because the septic system that's in the property isn't designed for that, et cetera, et cetera. That's the mentality behind it.
And yes, Yeah.
So, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. Can
okay.
people currently put an ADU on their property? Is there anything?
Yes, they-
So,
It has to be you. If it's you, and you have to be owner occupied, one of the 2 residents. So the ADU or the house has to be you.
There are no current regulations in the Croydon regulations that prevent any.
okay.
The state has a regulation that says, preempts anything, that says anyone can put an ADU on their property, but the ADU must be attached to the home. This ordinance would preempt the state and allow for the flexibility of detached ADU as well.
So in some ways make it more flexible, but in other ways it makes it less flexible because it restricts the square footage
It
and
does.
other aspects of it.
Right, and it has to be shared electric, shared water and sewer, shared driveway.
The idea being a detached garage. Somebody wants to upgrade the upstairs to a detached garage. That's a
Why not
perfect.
simply just limit the number of ADUs somebody can put on a property as opposed to getting so granular with the restrictions on each one?
I think you are limited to one.
You already are limited.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought somebody just said that this was to stop somebody from putting like 7 or.
That's right, that's-
10.
That's what this will do, stop people from putting multiple ADUs. It's one ADU, one house, one.
Okay, but the one that you do put on is adding restrictions to that one.
Correct.
So why do you need all that? Why not just have the rule that says you can only do one?
Because what if yep, good question, great question. So what if somebody has a 2-bedroom house on a 3-acre lot and decides to build a 4-bedroom ADU and puts 3 children in the school district? Correct. And the tax revenue from that ADU will never support the cost of those 3 children. So the reality is that the state has it in the RSA for that very reason, because the idea, again, behind the state moving towards this auxiliary dwelling unit was to combat the housing market and allow for children to move back home, or parents, elder parents to move back home. That is the kind of intent of the ordinance or the rule from the state. And it really was not developed for somebody to basically build a detached hotel. It's not what it's for. And the other concern, Aaron, being that somebody would build an ADU and use it as a, one of the reasons we talk about owner occupied, is they'll build an ADU and now they have 2 Airbnb units. And while that doesn't so much impact us from an infrastructure standpoint, it may upset the neighborhood.
Okay, I would be less concerned about that. So the ADU has to be owner occupied, it can't be.
The property has to be
occupied, either the main house or the.
correct, correct. So if somebody wanted to build an ADU and put it on Airbnb, we wouldn't have a problem with that because they live there on the property.
And again, if you get a visiting nurse or something and she needs a place to stay for a couple of months, then a person could rent that out to that person as part of the ADU. And again, it's in compliance with the spirit of what the state wants to do, but hopefully have some control over what's being done.
And do you have leeway to make it more, I mean, to the same point, this is about the 750 seems small for a 1-bedroom unit. Does it have to be that small or?
Well, a 20 by 20 garage is 400 square feet. People put 1-bedroom units, studios in there all the time. A tiny home is 485 square feet. So again, the intent of the 750 that was passed down from the state level, that's the state's number, not our number, is designed to be that medium to guarantee 2 small bedrooms, an efficiency type apartment. These are not designed for long-term living of multiple people. They're designed for 1 or 2 people, and that's it. And to keep the spirit of the design, the size is very important, because the bigger that you allow it to be, the more people that could potentially live there. And then you have an issue if somebody's near the river or if somebody's near groundwater supply, you have the issue of septic system capacity. So this allows the planning board to verify the septic system design when they're putting in the ADU to make sure that the system is designed for more than what bedrooms their house is today.
So rather than limiting it to the number of occupants, which would be harder to enforce, you know,
Right.
so that it has to be
Correct.
super small, so that nobody would ever want to.
But that doesn't preclude somebody or prevent, excuse me, that doesn't prevent somebody from coming before the zoning board and asking for a variance. Okay? As an example, you have a paraplegic family member that you want to put into an ADU. You probably can't do that. The radiuses and everything that you need for a wheelchair, you probably can't do that in 750 square feet. And that's why that person could come before the zoning board and ask for an exception of a hardship. And then the zoning board could give a variance for that and allow a bigger space.
And how does this get enforced? Is it only for future builds moving forward, or is it existing?
It's moving forward at this point.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, John, again.
I have to disagree with the statement, because if somebody's in a wheelchair, that's a personal hardship. That's not an hardship as far as building or breaking zoning rules or anything like that.
So the state would consider a handicapped person as a hardship, 100% of the time.
I just want to be on record, I disagree with you.
Okay.
That's a personal hardship.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the third item, which is Chris's fees, the various actions of subdivisions, et cetera.
Hello, okay, so, yeah, similar to the last few items, this kind of boils down to just kind of a cleanup thing. We haven't, so the RSA's say that the planning board can set the land use fees. And our fees have not been updated since we think like the mid-70s. So you can see they're a little outdated. So just based on inflation alone, you know, they would go up like 400%, but we didn't obviously just want to do that. So we took a look, you know, at our town and like different municipalities around the same size, and then also looked at our own processes, which we're going to talk about in the next item, but there's some processes that are in place currently that we really haven't been following. And so in order to actually follow those, that's the kind of thing that would have an impact on the town a little bit. So we increased a few of the fees. So yeah, we can go through them. Basically what this sheet has in your packet has, you know, the current fee and the proposed is on the right. So minor subdivision, basically the subdivision fees, annexation, and voluntary merger kind of all become a $75 application fee. So that kind of just puts it the same across the board. And there's going to be we're working on updating that process so that it's very clear. You know, maybe you don't know which one of these you're even doing, but you know what you want to do. So we're working on getting kind of a worksheet together that's going to walk you through, you know, how many lots are you looking to do, this, and this, and kind of walk you through the process. So that'll be kind of all under that $75. And there's per lot fees, which we're not actually changing. So minor was 50, it's staying 50. Major was 100, it's staying 100. So those are pretty straightforward. Obviously, there's other costs that you know, the person requesting will take on, such as like you need to have certified mail to contact your abutters and things like that. That will be you know, that the person doing the process will have to take care of. And then there's also county fees, like for the registry of deeds and that sort of thing. But we're deciding, some towns kind of put those in their own town fee structure, although they're not, you know, technically the town isn't setting those. Like we're not setting the post office fee for certified mail. So we haven't had those in, and we are not putting them in because we don't want to have to do this every few years when the mail rate goes up. And certified mail is $10.85. So that's the basics of that. Driveway permit process has been kind of revised recently, and before it was kind of just a little nilly, but now we actually have a process for the road agent. It's kind of the main driving factor of that. So now they're going to go out, the road agent will actually go out to the property at least twice. So the fee's kind of updated to reflect that. And the $15 is very, you know, low to begin with. Certificate of compliance is another thing. This is something that's in the regulations that kind of, it's become just a purely kind of administrative thing, and it's $2. So it's kind of like, you know, the select board just issues it for $2. Really is a little, you know, it doesn't have much meaning behind it. Yeah.
We've been discussing that for some time.
Yeah.
I'll explain that next.
And Jim, yeah, let Jim.
Yeah, it's in the zoning, I mean, it's in the regulations, and the town is issuing them currently, but pretty much no one knows what it is. And so that's another thing we're taking a look at, which will be covered in the next item, but I mean, $2 isn't really making anyone any money anyway at this point, so.
I'm just curious about certificate of compliance fee, compliance.
All right, Jim will explain that in his
We'll
section.
explain
Okay.
that in the next section.
coming up.
So anyways, yeah, that fee is increasing, and then there is gonna be some more involvement with the town in issuing that, which currently is kind of just a sign of paper. And that's kind of it, give me the $2, which was not the intent. And then the zoning board. Yep, so we've revised some things so that now if we have subdivision announcements, they don't have to go. The RSAs have different rules for what specific things must be put in print in like the local newspaper. So some of the planning board subdivision announcements no longer have to be because the state doesn't say they have to. So we revised it, but for the zoning board, if there's gonna be like a zoning board hearing, it has to get published in a newspaper. And so this fee increases mostly regarding that, because if anyone's seen what the newspaper advertising fees is, $75 doesn't get you very far even, but 20 basically won't pay for an ad. So this is kind of, I guess for the last, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 years, the town's basically been footing the cost for these ads. And so this is just getting it up to date to say, this is at least gonna cover, the bare minimum that the town has to do. And it may be a little cheaper, but it could be more expensive depending on what the item is. So that's just kind of in the ballpark. And then we just deleted the permit fee because that was a similar, it's not really serve any purpose, and it was $2. So we're just getting rid of that. So if there's questions, take those.
I have a question of our ex officio member. Is there a way that we could possibly get a hold of somebody, or like one of our state reps, and say, this RSA changed it, so now we can use the website to warn these meetings, warn this stuff, whereas this other RSA over there still requires you to use a newspaper at $175 a column inch or whatever it is, and say to that rep could possibly tweak that one there to agree with that one. Save everybody a lot.
That should be a nice bipartisan vote.
Won't go on until next year, but we can definitely ask.
Go on,
Okay.
It's a non-budget item. I can go on in January.
We can ask.
I mean, it's obviously an oversight by somebody. I mean, somebody had the presence of mind to say, well, you can, the language and stuff can be warned on our website page, whereas the zoning.
I think the zoning board is more judiciary though, quasi judiciary, but I have no problem in putting forth the question.
Okay, then maybe we can go either or as a compromise, right? Okay, no questions on the fees? Okay, then we'll go to the last item, which would be the establishment of the site plan review process, and that is Jim Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. It's nice to see a lot of people at a public hearing. So I was tasked with coming up with some form of a site plan review. And in digging into how we've done things here for the last 40 years, the ordinances and the rules were established back in 1989, and they haven't changed. And that doesn't mean that they need to change. That just means that we need to follow what we voted on and passed back in 1989. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, what I did was I came up with a site plan review committee application, which basically follows along with our current ordinance that was developed in 1989. And what our current ordinance says is that a person who wants to build something on their land would first get a building permit to do that. And through that building permit, they'd have to get a septic approval from the state of New Hampshire. And then they would go out, they would build their house. And if it met the setbacks and it met everything that it's supposed to meet under the regulations, the select board would issue a certificate of compliance, which basically says you have an approved septic system, you have a building permit, you have a driveway permit, your property line meet the setbacks that are in the regulations, which I believe are 35 feet from property. So right now, for the last forever, nobody's been issuing certificates of compliance. and no one has been going out. It's the select board's responsibility to go out, actually go to the site and talk to the homeowner or the landowner and say, okay, where's the building going? Where's the property lines? Okay, fine. Because we don't have a building inspector, or do we want one? We don't have the infrastructure and a deep department that we want to put a bunch of regulations onto our citizens, because that would be not why we live here. And so I think in the spirit of trying to follow the rules that we established in 1989, I came up with a form that any landowner would fill out. And what it does is, if you follow along, you'll see that each step of the process has a person that gets involved that's supposed to be involved. So the first step of the process is the building permit. They come down, they file a building permit. Then it goes to select for approval. Then they have to get a driveway permit. So all the players that are in control of the select board, the building permit process, the driveway permit process, and then the final inspection process. All of those people are on this form so that everybody has to see it in order for it to pass down the line to the planning board. Then, when the home property owner comes in to present their plan to the planning board has all this information already, and everybody's seen it. So we don't have to sit here and say, well, did Joe go out and look at the driveway? Because I don't have a record of that here. Everything. And the fee that we charge to do that will keep the administration of this in a folder. We'll keep it passing around to the people who need to see it. And then the final step of the process will be that the homeowner will come in and say, the house is done. Select board member will drive out to their home. They'll check and make sure that the house is here instead of here, and they'll make sure that that's right, and they'll issue the certificate of compliance. And it's very important to know the difference between a certificate of compliance and a certificate of occupancy. So a certificate of occupancy, which is issued by towns like Newport or Claremont or places like that, they have an actual building inspector that has gone out and inspected each and every part of the process, from the foundation to from the site work to the foundation to the framing to the electrical to the heating systems to the plumbing systems. Everything is inspected. And then the town issues a certificate of occupancy, which says the town has inspected this property to be compliant with rules and regulations of building codes and any building codes that that particular town would have. We have the wonderful luxury of having none of that. However, we do have a rule that says we have to have the select board sign off that we're in compliance with what ordinances we have. Building permit, driveway permit, state approved septic system and stamped by a state inspector. And you meet your 35-foot setbacks. That's it. And so all this form does is organize it so that we can make sure that everybody's doing their job. Because we don't want to make it more difficult. We just want to make it done the way the ordinance says it should be done. Questions?
Here it says the fire safety officer.
Go up to the,
I'm sorry? Okay.
On the paper, it says inspection, select board representative, fire safety officer.
Yep. So, yep. So what we're doing is we're looking, that's there as a placeholder. What we're trying to figure out is if we can pay a certified firefighter to do gas inspections as a safety issue.
But that's not what this is. This is a site review.
Yep. And the fire department would sit on that and they would say, for example, the driveway is 8 feet wide. We can't get a unit up there. It's a safety review. Can we get apparatus up there? Can we turn the apparatus around? Can we get an ambulance up there? Can we get emergency services up there? Those are the things that you need to be able to know.
I understand that, but I guess my issue again is listing somebody as a fire safety officer where we don't employ, we don't have control of the fire department, having to establish a fire safety officer.
You can pay any firefighter in the state provide the inspection for us. Doesn't have to be the Croydon Volunteer Fire Department, it could be the Newport Fire Department, it could be anybody who's fire certified could do that process for us. And we would pay them to go out and do that service. Or we would pay them to sit at the committee meeting to make sure that those sight lines and those radiuses and those safety issues that are concerned are covered. And if they're not, if there's an issue that, look, there's 2 huge pine trees on either side of the driveway, it's only gonna be 9.5 feet, then it's only 9.5 feet, but it's dark. Yep. Yep.
Okay, and then the other item on, you mentioned that, is that the person making the application will be responsible for paying the fee for the fire inspection.
Correct. If it's necessary.
If it's necessary.
Done.
There's gotta be some, a little more detail on that line, of fire safety. State fire marshal.
I'm the meeting guy, does happens my meeting twice a month. We use the microphone.
Thank you.
Please, thank you.
Thank you. I know.
I hear it twice a month.
The state of New Hampshire, the fire marshal, state fire marshal, has 2 certification courses for any fireman to get certified to do any inspections. I think that should be,
Okay.
I don't think you need Tom, Dick, and Harry to be able to do it.
So what's your suggestion?
My suggestion is somewhere in language.
Yep.
That a certified, state marshal, certified, there are 2 courses that the state offers.
So as long as the guy has taken the course and is certified, you would accept that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So certified for what?
It's an inspection type certification through the fire department. So if the fire chief was there, says, oh, geez, pull this place up, but he's gonna know what he's talking about.
Right. Okay. I'd be happy to put that in.
That's all I'd like to see.
Yep.
It's 2 courses for that.
Certified fire inspector.
State fire marshal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic.
Yes, Jim?
I know you were talking about confident, I didn't really read it here, but something you said bothered me a lot about the certificate of compliance. You said something to the effect of the house is built, then they come this way and they look for a certificate of compliance, or look for compliance. I don't know what we do now or what towns do, but as much of it can be done before something's built, the better. I don't like the ex post facto. I used to work in the nuclear industry, and one of our favorite things was the federal government telling us, go ahead, you build a $7 billion plant, and then they tell you you can't turn it on. Because they didn't like something you did, you actually put the money into it. So again, you can cry out details, and it's not all here, but when that gets hammered out, whatever extent that you can keep things, a builder or a landowner's assurance that if he does what he said he was going to do, he will be approved, period. Because I see the potential for abuse, willingly or unwillingly, in a system that relies more heavily on ex post facto compliance certification. If you do what you said you were going to do and they said it was okay, there has to be some assurance that will not change anything, period.
So if you read in the ordinance that was written in 1989, it basically
Is it
said
ours or state?
ours. This is what we're trying to follow. Trying to follow ours to see if it actually works. Because the thought process was, why change something that's never actually been done? Why not do what the intent of the ordinance was and actually do it? Because it hasn't been done. So the intent of the certificate of compliance in the town of Croydon under these ordinances, as a way that this board interprets it, is that all that is a courtesy at the end. And courtesy to the homeowner and a courtesy to the town that, yes, you built something compliant. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. You can sit here and the homeowner or the property owner can come forward with a plan. And they have a drawing, they have a septic design, they have a location of the garage, location of the house. And we all approve it. Now, a year later, it's built. And we go back to the site to give the certificate of compliance. And they decided to move the foundation 50 feet because they hit ledge. And now they're 18 feet from the property line.
Yes, I understand. This.
You would never know that unless you went back at the end.
I understand. I guess one thing I'm concerned a little bit about this too is that you just said we haven't been doing it for 40 years or whatever. Has that been a particularly grave problem? Or are we looking for problems?
I think that the public is looking for consistency in how we do things, so that we're consistent with every single person.
I'm going back to the historical side. I know we wrote something in '89. You're saying we haven't done it. I'm taking all that word for all that. Sounds reasonable. What I'm saying is we suddenly decided, oh my God, it's 2023. We got to do all this stuff. I question the wisdom of that approach. It may not be a particular.
Well, I think the wisdom of that approach is that we're not changing anything.
Yes, you are.
No, we're not.
You're going to start doing something we haven't been doing.
No, we're going to start doing something that the voters in 1989 voted to have done.
I didn't say that. You're about to do something we haven't been doing.
We're about to follow the rules that have been established by
That
the
may
town.
be, but I'm saying you are changing something. Something is changing here, and I'm saying that you should give thoughts to whether that's the change you want to make.
Mr. Pesci, at one point in time, there was a building inspector in Croydon. He did go out and inspect buildings. And then for whatever reason, he quit being the building inspector. And I don't know what happened from then, if they couldn't find another building inspector. And perhaps not being able to find somebody to volunteer to do this or to do that job, or they couldn't find somebody that was qualified to do that job. It just didn't seem to happen. But if you go back in the town reports, there was a building inspector.
Okay,
at some
take your word
point.
for
So
it.
we did do it at
Okay,
some time.
what I'm saying is it's clearly not been a continuous thing. And I don't know that I would take as an a priori truth that we should do what we've written, done a number of different things it looks like. I think prudence would demand that we review all of our options, whether they're reasonable what we've written so far or not. Because if you don't like what we've written down, we can always change it. I'm not just necessarily opposed to this plan, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is, I don't care for the archaeology, dust it off, oh, yeah, look what we said 50 years ago, let's do it. There might have been a good reason, I don't know. I just think that the supporting evidence.
I think you bring up a very good point that this board took into consideration, which is we could have sat here and rewrote the whole thing. And we didn't, because we want to try to see if what was voted on in 1989 and it's actually used, if it works. Because it's simple. And it doesn't put extra regulation in. And it doesn't put extra credence in. It doesn't do any of that. It just follows the rules that have been here for 40 years. Wouldn't that be a good thing?
Not necessarily. I haven't
Well, unfortunately, we're going to follow the laws that we passed in 1989. And if you want to change them, we can change
That's
them.
what I'm
They
saying.
don't work.
You're about to make a change. And I'm saying is there are different changes we can make. It's not necessarily the best one. It seems like.
And I suppose that if grand larceny was always done, but it's against the law, and somebody came in and said, hey, this is grand larceny. You guys aren't supposed to do
That's a
this.
specious argument. Come on, we're not talking about that.
But we are. But we are. We're talking about legal voter passed ordinances that this town sat in debate and formulated their votes and put into law. So for the board to want to follow the history of the town and to follow the litany of what people voted for, I think is not only respectful for what was voted in the past, but it's the law. And we're going to follow the law, whether you like the change or not. It's the law.
No, it's our law. It was voted on by the town.
No, it's the town's
The
law.
town has the option to change the law. You're saying.
Correct.
Why vote for 89? We can change it. And I'm saying.
Perfect.
There's nothing that says one is better than another.
And there you go. Bring you right back to your original point. How do we know that the law doesn't work unless we actually impose it and try it? Why would we change something? Why would we change something before we even know it works? So you're absolutely right. We're doing the right thing.
And Jim, that's another point. the cell tower up here, okay? The guy comes in from whoever builds cell tower. And he comes in, he talks to Charlene, he says, okay, what do I have to do to build cell tower in this town, right? And Charlene says, nothing. And the guy goes, nothing, okay? And walks out, puts up a cell tower. God only knows whether it's 20, 50 feet higher than it has to be or anything else. One thing we do know is that the radius for if the tower falls down will cross over the setback and end up behind Houston Roads and House. Okay, it's not going to hurt anybody because it's far enough away. But there are regulations for that kind of thing. Okay, and this particular one didn't follow. Okay, because the planning board never saw the plan for this. I don't think the select board ever see the plan. I don't think they did either. And the guy, when he put up the tower.
I think that we have 8 builds a year, maybe 10 builds a year. I think that to sit here and try to have 21st century people impose rules that the senior people of the town of Croydon imposed in 1989, they did those rules for a reason because they figured it would work. We haven't changed that much in 40 years. The population is pretty much the same. So to this board, our feeling was, why don't we try to follow the law before we try to change it? Because I think that would be more of a change, more of a really bad change. It's unproven. There's a reason why these rules are written this way. Let's try and figure out why, and let's run it for a year and see where we are. That's what the board's asking.
Okay.
Yes, Aaron.
Just a quick question. I do appreciate what you're doing with this. I don't think anybody really wants building departments, building inspectors, all that. I like how it's small and efficient. My question though is the certificate of compliance, although we're not calling it a building inspection, it still sort of sounds like a building inspection that happens at the end. Just wondering who does that inspection, and to somebody else's point,
It's in the ordinance, Aaron, and the select board performs the function.
okay.
And again, they're only checking those 4 items. Septic by the state, driveway permit, building permit, setbacks.
Okay. As long as that's it, I'm
Yeah.
happy with that.
And the thought was also the idea to try this was, I think that it's been difficult for the select board. This is only 3. And I think that when the select board goes to 5, they'll have more capacity to do that. And they can do it with another select board member because it's not a quorum in that case. So, 2 select board people can go out and look at it and say, yep, okay, this is how we do this. And I actually think that once the process is rolling with the new select board, I think it's gonna work well for the 6 to 10 homes we build here.
Yes, Doug.
A couple of times you said it's only gonna be before items, can that language be put in there? And we're at a town meeting.
Yep.
We could be here forever unless people see.
It is there. I will make it clear. I think that's a great idea, Dominic. Thank you. Revise the form, make it clear on what the 4 elements are. Actually, I think what we'll do is we don't have, that's the other kind of sticky wicket here. We don't have a certificate of compliance. Nobody can find one in the office. So when we create one, we'll include it in the packet. We'll put the 4 criteria there, and that will satisfy your suggestion, which I think is good. Is that fair? Perfect.
You got another question, Aaron? Besides, hand up. Oh, thumbs up, okay. Any other questions or comments?
Seeing none, motion to close the public hearing?
Well, I think, don't we have to vote on each of the individual?
Yep, so you would close the public hearing,
Oh, close public hearing.
we talk, and nobody interrupts.
Gotcha. Okay.
Motion to close the public
I
hearing?
second the motion to close the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
The public hearing is officially closed. Okay, now we're just the planning board, correct? Okay. So I move that we make motions on the individual items and then send these on their way to the select board for their review and inclusion as part of the warrant. Who would like to make a motion on, start with the changes to the zoning ordinance, Article 9?
I will make a motion
Second.
to,
Change this one. Article 9 of the zoning ordinance.
Right here.
what are we saying, to adopt it or,
To approve. Make a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve revisions of Article 9 of the zoning ordinance as presented.
I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Second item.
That's you, Mr. Chairman.
Second me, okay. Changes to the rules governing accessory dwelling units.
I'll make a motion that we adopt and send on to the select board the rules to change the governing of ADUs.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chris?
Oh, George.
That's yours. Read it right here.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the changes to the fee schedule for various applications for town permits and authorization.
I will-
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Lastly, I will make a motion to adopt the site plan review process with the changes suggested by Dominic to the certificate of compliance and the language changes from Mr. Pesky that I think he mentioned. I wrote it down.
Certified fire marshal.
Certified fire marshal, what says that, right? Yep.
And I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's take care. I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Great questions.
So this gotta stay here.
Got everything you need, Melissa?
Yep, I will with this. I got who made the motion and seconded, and then I'll fill in all the crap after. Did you see that?
Come out there, go.
No, 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 no. It's not with Bruce. He reads it. Bruce.
Can you remember who made the motion? Well done. What we did was we took the item.
Very good.
Well, that's the thing, if you don't have the site plan conference review committee,